Dr. Minji Park knelt in the red dust of Kepler 442b, carefully brushing dirt away from another stone tablet. The alien sun beat down on her back through her protective suit. She had been working on this dig site for 3 months now, and every day brought new mysteries. The planet was dead. Nothing lived here anymore. But long ago, millions of years before humans even existed, a great civilization had built cities across this world. Now only ruins remained, buried under centuries of dust and time. "Minji, you need to see this," called Taiho Kim from across the excavation site. His voice crackled through her helmet radio. She stood up, her knees aching from hours of careful digging. Taiho was her research partner and best friend since university. They had explored dozens of dead worlds together, but this one felt different, special, and frightening. Walking over to where Taiho worked, Minji saw him standing over a large black stone covered in carved symbols. The stone was different from the others they had found. It looked newer somehow, despite being thousands of years old. "What language is this?" Taiho asked, running his gloved fingers over the carved lines. Minji pulled out her scanner and pointed it at the stone. The device beeped and hummed as it analyzed the symbols. After a few seconds, words appeared on the small screen. It's Valdarian," she said slowly. "But that's impossible. The Valdarians went extinct 50,000 years ago. They lived on the other side of the galaxy." Taiho frowned behind his helmet visor. "So what's their language doing here?" Minji began translating the symbols, speaking each word carefully. "Beware. Those who devour worlds. They come from the dark between stars. They eat everything. Planets, suns, life itself." The two humans looked at each other. This was the same message they had found on 12 other tablets around the dig site. Different languages, different civilizations, but always the same warning about creatures called the Devourers. "Keep reading," Taiho said quietly. Minji continued translating. "We fought them for 1,000 years. Many worlds fell. Many species died. But someone stopped them. Someone made them sleep." "Who?" Taiho asked. "It doesn't say, but look at this next part." Minji's voice grew excited. "The Devourers still sleep deep beneath the third moon of the blue world. Do not wake them. Do not seek them. For if they rise again, all will be consumed." Taiho was quiet for a long moment. "Blue world. That description shows up in half the tablets we've found. Here. I know. I've been thinking about it." Minji stood up and looked around at the ancient ruins. Broken towers reached toward the sky like dead fingers. Every civilization that lived here wrote about the same blue world. They all seemed to know about it. But which world do they mean? There are hundreds of blue planets in the galaxy. Minji pulled up her datapad and showed Taiho a star chart. "I've been checking the ancient records, cross-referencing the astronomical data from all these tablets. There's only one world that every single extinct civilization called the blue world in their star maps." Taiho looked at the chart. His face went pale behind his helmet. "No, that can't be right." "Earth," Minji whispered. "They're all talking about Earth." The two stood in silence, staring at the ancient warning carved in stone. Around them, the dead city stretched into the distance. Whatever had lived here was gone now, but their final message remained. Taiho kicked at the red dirt. "Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's a coincidence." But Minji was already pulling up more data on her pad. "Look at this. I found similar warnings on 6 other dead worlds. Always the same story. The Devourers came. Someone stopped them. They sleep beneath the third moon of the blue world. Earth has 1 moon, not 3, Taiho pointed out. Now it does. But what if it didn't always? What if something happened? What if someone built something there? The thought made both of them shiver. Earth was home to 5 billion humans. It was the center of human civilization. The idea that something ancient and terrible might be sleeping beneath its surface was too horrible to consider. Minji carefully photographed every symbol on the tablet. "We need to report this to the coalition immediately." "They'll think we're crazy," Taiho said. "Maybe. But what if we're right? What if there really is something sleeping under Earth? Something that once devoured entire star systems?" As they packed their equipment, Minji couldn't stop thinking about the warnings. Every extinct civilization had known about the blue world. They had all feared what slept there, and now humans had built their entire civilization on top of it, never knowing what lay beneath. The alien sun was setting, painting the dead ruins in shades of red and orange. Soon it would be dark, and they would return to their ship. But Minji knew she wouldn't sleep well tonight, or any night until she found out the truth about what was hidden beneath Earth's surface. The warnings were clear. Something terrible slept below. And if it ever woke up, the entire galaxy would be in danger. 6 months after Minji and Taiho sent their report to the coalition, massive drilling machines surrounded Earth. The government had tried to keep the discovery secret, but word leaked out. Soon, every major news network was talking about the ancient warnings and the mysterious third moon of the blue world. Dr. Hyunwoo Lee stood at the edge of the largest excavation site in South Korea. The hole was so deep that he could not see the bottom. Bright lights shone down into the darkness, and the sound of drilling never stopped. "How deep are we now?" he asked Jisoo Choi, the chief engineer. 4 kilometers and still going," she replied, wiping sweat from her face. "But the sensors are picking up something big down there, really big." Hyunwoo had been put in charge of the dig 3 months ago. He was an expert in ancient civilizations, but nothing had prepared him for this. The deeper they dug, the stranger things became. "Sir, you need to see this," called out young Jae Park, one of the junior researchers. He was standing near a computer screen, his face pale with excitement. Hyunwoo walked over and looked at the screen. It showed a 3-dimensional map of what lay beneath the Earth. The image took his breath away. "Is that a building?" he asked. "Not just one building," young Jae said. "It's an entire city, underground. The structures go down for kilometers, and they're old. Really, really old." The map showed massive tunnels and chambers carved out of solid rock. But these were not natural caves. Someone had built this place. Someone with incredible technology. "How old?" Hyunwoo asked. "The dating. Equipment says at least 50,000 years, maybe older." 50,000 years, that was long before humans had built any cities, before they had even learned to farm. Whoever made this place was not human. "Sir," another voice called out. This time it was Minho Kang, the head of security. "We've broken through into one of the chambers. You need to come see this now." Hyunwoo grabbed his helmet and followed Minho to the elevator that would take them down into the hole. The ride down seemed to last forever. The walls of rock flashed by in the elevator lights. When they reached the bottom, Hyunwoo gasped. They were standing in a huge underground room. The ceiling was so high that their lights could not reach it. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with a soft blue light. "The symbols are giving off their own light," Jisoo explained. "We don't know how. They seem to be some kind of advanced technology." But Hyunwoo was not looking at the walls. He was staring at the center of the room, where rows and rows of large metal containers stretched into the darkness. Each container was about the size of a coffin, but they were made of a strange silver metal that seemed to shimmer. "What are those?" he whispered. "We think they're some kind of storage pods," Minho said, "but they're still active, still powered after all this time." As they walked closer to the nearest pod, Hyunwoo could see that it had a window made of clear material. He shone his flashlight through the window and nearly dropped the light in shock. Inside the pod was a person, or something that looked like a person. The being was tall and muscular with pale skin and long dark hair. It looked human, but there were differences. The bone structure was heavier. The muscles were denser. And there was something about the face that seemed older than any human face should be. "Is it alive?" Hyunwoo asked. Before anyone could answer, the pod began to make noise. A low humming sound filled the air. Steam poured out from cracks around the edges of the container. "Everyone back," Minho shouted, raising his weapon. But Hyunwoo could not move. He watched in amazement as the pod slowly opened. More steam escaped, and then a hand appeared, then an arm. Then the being inside sat up. The creature looked around the chamber with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. When those eyes found Hyunwoo, the being spoke. The words were in a language that Hyunwoo had never heard before, but somehow, his universal translator was working. "How long have we slept?" the being asked. His voice was deep and calm. You've been here for 50,000 years, Hyunwoo managed to say. The being nodded slowly as if this was not surprising. "And the harvest time? Has it begun?" "I don't understand." "What harvest time?" The being climbed out of the pod with smooth, graceful movements. He was taller than any human Hyunwoo had ever seen, and despite being asleep for 50,000 years, he moved like a trained athlete. "I am Sunho of the first line," the being said. "And you are our children, our descendants." "What?" Hyunwoo stepped backward. "That's impossible. Humans evolved on Earth. We have the fossil record. We know our history." Sunho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Your history is not as complete as you think, young one. Tell me, have the Zephyrians returned? Do their crystal ships again darken the stars?" "I've never heard of any Zephyrians," Hyunwoo said. "Then we woke too early," Sunho said quietly. "Or perhaps we woke just in time." All around the chamber, other pods were beginning to hum and release steam. Whatever had triggered Sunho's awakening was happening to all of them. Hyunwoo realized that everything was about to change. The discovery would shake the foundations of human knowledge about their own origins. And somehow, he knew that this was only the beginning. 3 weeks after Sunho's awakening, the most important meeting in human history took place in Geneva. Leaders from every human world sat around a massive table, along with representatives from dozens of alien species in the coalition. The room was filled with tension and fear. Sunho stood at the center of the room, his tall figure casting long shadows under the bright lights. Behind him stood 12 other awakened predecessors, each one looking like a perfect human but somehow more. Their presence made even the bravest coalition leaders uncomfortable. "You're telling us that humans are not really from Earth?" asked President Ki-Wan-Yang, the leader of the United Earth government. His hands shook slightly as he spoke. "Not exactly," Sunho replied in his calm, deep voice. "Your species did evolve here, but you evolved from us. We are your ancestors, your original form." Dr. Minji Park sat at the table, still unable to believe what she was hearing. "But our genetic records show natural evolution, millions of years of slow change." "We made sure of that," said another predecessor named Yunbi. She was smaller than Sunho but moved with the same frightening grace. "We changed ourselves before we slept. We made ourselves weaker, slower, more limited. We wanted our children to grow up differently than we did." Admiral Soman-na leaned forward. "Why? Why would you make yourselves weaker?" Sunho's expression grew dark. "Because we had become monsters. 50,000 years ago, we controlled 1/3 of this galaxy. We could adapt to any world, breathe any atmosphere, survive in space itself. We could turn rocks into weapons and make enemy ships serve us. We were unstoppable." "That sounds like a good thing," said General Daehyun Kim. "No." Sunho shook his head. "It was not good. We had forgotten how to feel, how to love, how to care about anything except conquest and survival. We were becoming like our enemies." "What enemies?" President Yang asked. "The Zephyrians," Sunho said, and every predecessor in the room tensed at the name. "They are a species of pure logic and calculation. They believe that only the strongest should survive, and they eliminate any race that might threaten them someday." Dr. Yoonji Kim, Minji's research partner, raised her hand. "Are you saying they're still out there?" "Yes, and they have returned. Our deep space sensors detected their ships 3 months ago. They are moving toward coalition space, destroying worlds as they come. The room erupted in worried voices. Representatives from different species began arguing in their own languages. President Yang banged his fist on the table for silence. "How do you know this?" he demanded. Sunho touched a device on his wrist, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a map of the galaxy with hundreds of red dots scattered across it. "Each red dot is a world that has gone silent in the past year," Sunho explained. "The pattern is clear. The Zephyrians are working their way toward the core worlds, eliminating any species that shows potential for rapid advancement." The coalition representatives stared at the map in horror. There were so many red dots. "Why are they doing this now?" asked Admiral Na. "Because we woke up," said Yunbi quietly. "Our awakening sent out signals across subspace. Ancient technology that we thought was dead came back to life. The Zephyrians know that the predecessors are active again." "But you said you made yourselves weaker," President Yang protested. "We did. But the potential is still there, locked away in your genetic code. Every human carries the dormant abilities of the predecessors. We made sure of that." Dr. Minji Park felt her heart racing. "What kind of abilities?" Sunho gestured to one of the other predecessors, a man named Jinwoo. Without any visible effort, Jinwoo's skin began to change color, becoming metallic silver. Then his hand transformed, growing longer and sharper until it looked like a blade. "Adaptation," Sunho explained as Jinwoo returned to normal. "We can change our bodies to survive any environment or threat. We can learn any skill, understand any technology, turn any material into a tool or weapon." The room was completely silent now. "The Zephyrians remember what we were capable of," Sunho continued. "They fear that humanity might unlock their true potential. So they plan to destroy you before that can happen." "Can we unlock it?" asked General Kim. "Can we become like you again?" "Yes," Sunho said simply. "But the process cannot be undone. Once awakened, you can never go back to being what you are now, and there is no guarantee that you will remain human in the way you understand it." President Yang looked around the room at his advisors and fellow leaders. "What are our other options?" "Fight with what you have now and hope for the best," Yunbi said. "The Zephyrians have been growing stronger for 50,000 years. Their technology is far beyond anything the Coalition possesses." "How long do we have?" Admiral Na asked. Sunho checked his device again. "Their main fleet will reach the outer human colonies in 6 months. If they maintain their current pace of destruction, they will arrive at Earth in 2 years. The weight of the decision settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Become monsters to survive, or die as they were. Either way, humanity as they knew, it was about to end. The first Zephyrian attack came without warning. Captain Ji-hee Wan was commanding the defense fleet around New Seoul Colony when the enemy ships appeared on her screens like ghosts materializing from the void. "What are those?" asked her weapons officer, Lieutenant Dae-ho Yoon. The Zephyrian ships looked like giant crystals floating in space. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Light pulsed through their transparent hulls in patterns that hurt to look at. "All ships, open fire," Ji-hee ordered. The human fleet launched everything they had: missiles, laser beams, plasma cannons. The weapons struck the crystal ships and simply disappeared, absorbed into their hulls like water soaking into sand. "Captain, our weapons aren't working," Dae-ho shouted. The Zephyrian ships began to glow brighter. Then beams of pure energy shot out from them. The first beam hit the battleship Thunder, and the massive vessel simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone as if it had never existed. "All ships retreat," Ji-hee screamed. But it was too late. Within 10 minutes, the entire human defense fleet was destroyed. The Zephyrians did not even slow down as they continued toward New Seoul Colony. 3 hours later, 5 million humans were dead, and the colony was nothing but floating debris. The same scene played out across human space. Busan Station, gone. New Incheon, destroyed. The outer colonies fell one by one, faster than anyone thought possible. On Earth, emergency meetings ran day and night. President Kiwan Yang looked like he had aged 10 years in the past week. Dark circles surrounded his eyes and his hand shook when he reached for his coffee. "How many colonies have we lost?" he asked Admiral Somin Na. 17 in the past 5 days, she replied quietly. "At this rate, they'll reach the core worlds in weeks, not months." Dr. Minji Park sat at the table with the other advisors. She had been studying the Zephyrian attacks, trying to find any weakness, any hope. "Their ships learn from every attack. Each time we fire at them, they adapt. Our weapons become less effective." "What about the coalition fleet?" asked General Daehyun Kim. "The Altarians sent their best ships to help defend Centauri Prime," Admiral Na said. "The Zephyrians destroyed them in 4 minutes. The surviving alien species are already talking about surrender." President Yang looked across the table at Sun Ho, who had been silent through most of the meeting. "You've been quiet. What do you think?" "I think you are about to make the hardest choice in your species' history," Sun Ho replied. "The awakening process," President Yang said slowly. "You're talking about changing all of humanity." "It is the only way you will survive," said Yunbi, another predecessor. "Your current technology, your current abilities, they are not enough. The Zephyrians have had 50,000 years to perfect their weapons." Dr. Yoonji Kim, who had been studying the genetic data, spoke up. "We've run computer models. The awakening process would change every human who undergoes it. Not just physically, but mentally. The way you think, the way you feel, everything would be different." "Different how?" President Yang asked. "You would become more like us," Sun Ho explained. "Stronger, faster, able to adapt to any environment. But you would also become colder, more focused on survival and victory than on the things you currently value." "You mean we'd lose our humanity?" said Dr. Minji Park. "Not lose it," Sun Ho corrected. "Transform it. Whether that is better or worse, I cannot say." The room fell silent. Outside the windows, they could see the lights of Seoul stretching to the horizon. Billions of people going about their lives not knowing that their entire species was about to change forever or die. "How long would the process take?" President Yang asked. "For the genetic locks to fully release?" "About 72 hours, Yunbi said. "But the changes would begin immediately. Within hours, humans would start adapting, learning, becoming something new." "And there's no going back?" "None," Sun Ho said firmly. "Once awakened, you can never return to what you are now." President Yang looked around the table at his advisors. Votes? One by one, they spoke. Admiral Na voted yes. Humanity needed to survive at any cost. General Kim voted yes. They had to fight back with everything they had. Dr. Eunji Kim voted no. The cost was too high. They would lose everything that made them human. Dr. Minji Park was the last to vote. She thought about the ancient warnings she had found, about the civilizations that had tried to fight the devourers and failed. She thought about her nephews and nieces, about the future they deserved to have. "Yes," she said quietly, "we have to try." President Yang nodded slowly. "Then it's decided." He looked at Sun Ho. "How do we begin?" "We activate the genetic release signal from the underground chambers," Sun Ho explained. "Every human in the galaxy will begin to change simultaneously. But remember, once this starts, there is no stopping it." As the meeting ended, Minji looked out at the city lights one last time. Tomorrow, those lights would shine on a very different world, a world where humans were no longer human, but something much more dangerous. The choice was made. Now they would see if they could live with it. The change began exactly at midnight, Earth time. Across the galaxy, every human felt it at the same moment. A strange tingling that started in their bones and spread outward like electricity through their bodies. Marine Sergeant Deho Yoon was on patrol duty aboard the space station orbiting Mars when it happened. He was checking the outer hull when his oxygen tank suddenly ran empty. He should have died in the vacuum of space, but instead he found himself breathing normally. His lungs had changed, adapting to extract oxygen from trace gases floating in space. "What's happening to me, Tar?" he whispered, but his voice carried perfectly through the airless void. On the research station near Jupiter, Engineer Nayung Seo was repairing a broken plasma conduit when the tools in her hands began to change. The metal wrench stretched and reshaped itself, becoming exactly what she needed for the job. She stared at her hands in amazement as her skin took on a metallic sheen. "The tools, they're responding to my thoughts," she said to her colleague. But her colleague, Young Jae Park, was having his own transformation. His eyes had become sharper, able to see across the electromagnetic spectrum. He could see radio waves, heat signatures, and energy patterns that had been invisible before. On Earth, Dr. Minji Park watched the transformation happen to herself in her laboratory mirror. Her reflection looked the same, but she could feel her mind expanding. Knowledge that had never been there before began filling her thoughts. She understood technologies that hadn't been invented yet, could see solutions to problems that had puzzled scientists for decades. "It's working," she said, into her communicator. "The awakening is working." 3 days later, the first Zephyrian fleet arrived at Earth expecting to find a helpless planet. Instead, they found something that made their logical minds freeze with an emotion they had never experienced before: fear. Captain Ji Hye-won stood on the bridge of humanity's first living warship. The vessel had grown from an asteroid in just 48 hours, shaped by human will and awakened genetic memories. The ship's hull pulsed with life, and she could feel its consciousness merged with her own. "Enemy fleet detected," her navigation officer reported. His voice was calmer than any human voice should be during an attack. "Good," Ji-hye said. Through the ship's organic sensors, she could feel the Zephyrian crystal vessels approaching. "Let them come." The Zephyrians fired first, their energy beams striking the human ships. But instead of being destroyed, the human vessels absorbed the energy and grew stronger. The attacks that should have vaporized them only made them adapt faster. "Impossible," transmitted one of the Zephyrian commanders. "Their ships are learning from our weapons." Within minutes, the human fleet began to change. Ships grew new weapons that fired the Zephyrians' own energy back at them. Human fighters split into smaller vessels when attacked, then recombined into larger, more powerful forms. But the most terrifying change was in the humans themselves. They no longer needed ships to fight in space. Marines like Daeho Yoon simply stepped out of airlocks and flew through vacuum using nothing but their transformed bodies. They landed on Zephyrian ships and began tearing them apart with their bare hands. "They're turning our crystal hulls into weapons," another Zephyrian captain reported in panic. "The humans are using our own ships against us." The battle lasted only 6 hours. When it ended, the entire Zephyrian fleet had been converted into human vessels. Not destroyed, converted. The crystal ships now pulsed with organic life, serving their new human masters. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. But instead of celebration, other species watched in growing horror as humanity continued to change and grow. On the alien world of Proxima, the Council of Species held an emergency meeting. Representatives from dozens of civilizations sat in stunned silence as they watched recordings of the battle. "They don't just fight," said the Altarian ambassador, his tentacles trembling with fear. "They consume. They turn everything they touch into part of themselves." "The ancient warnings were true," whispered the elderly Centauran leader. "The Devourers have returned, but they're not who we thought they were." Back on Earth, Sun-ho met with President Kiwan-yang in the underground chambers where it all began. Around them, thousands of empty pods served as reminders of what humanity had once been. "Are you satisfied with what we've become?" Yang asked. His voice was different now, carrying harmonics that could influence emotional responses in other species. "You survived," Sun-ho replied. "That was the goal. But at what cost? The other species are terrified of us. They call us the new Devourers." "Because you are," Sun-ho said simply. "You have love, loyalty, and the willingness to sacrifice for each other, but now you also have the power to reshape reality itself. That combination makes you far more dangerous than we ever were." Yang looked out through the chamber's organic walls, which now extended deep into Earth's core. The entire planet was becoming something new, something alive and aware. The galaxy will never feel safe again, Yang realized. No, Sunho agreed. They will know that somewhere in the stars, there is a species that can adapt to anything, overcome any challenge, and turn any threat into a tool for their survival. Your emotions make you unpredictable. Your awakened abilities make you unstoppable. As Yang walked away, Sunho smiled quietly. Humanity's forgotten past had indeed become the universe's worst nightmare. But sometimes, nightmares were necessary for survival.